M3B should be balanced. M3B1 is balanced.
Okay. So we learned in the Gemara. That the Kohen. We learned all about his machta that he goes in with. So Zok Gemara. Vaksiv, it says in the pasuk, "B'chol Adam lo yiyah ba'il moed," and Rashi says, "Umukmin lo kamon b'shmaitin b'shas hakteris." We learned that no one's allowed to be in the heichal when the Kohen Gadol places the keteiros in lefnai of lefnim. But the problem is the Mishnah says that the blood of the par, someone was holding it on the roivet haravi, mixing it so that it shouldn't harden. And we learned, Pashup Shot in the Mishnah was that the roivet haravi was the fourth row of tiles after you entered the heichal. So if this fellow was standing there mixing the blood while the Kohen Gadol is going to go into the Kodesh HaKodeshim, it's going to violate what it says in the pasuk, "B'chol Adam lo yiyah ba'il moed." And Rabbi Yehuda, Tani, let's learn Shel Heichal. So it's Rashi, not 4 rows of tile into the interior of the Heichal, but rather Kishayoychim in the Heichal Azara. If you're leaving the Heichal and you're going into the Azara, Moine as arrived, you count the rows of tile, and your 4 rows of tile external to the Heichal, the high reveal a Heichal, that's what we're referring to. So in fact, there was nobody in the oil moed when the Kohen Gadol went to bring his keteiros, because this person standing with the blood was in fact 4 rows of tile to the exterior of the Heichal. Tanarabon, v'chol adam lo yiyah ba'oil moed. No one's allowed to be in the oil moed when the Kohen Gadol goes in to do his avoid. Yochel, you might think afilu ba'azara, that no one's even allowed to be in the azara. Never mind not in the heichal, but even the azara, no one's allowed to be. And for the Gemara, Yochel lo yehi adam oimid kishakoyin maktik torish v'lefnai lefnim talmud lomer ba'oil moed. Only in the oil moed itself. Ainly elo ba'oil moed sheba midbar. I would only know that no one could be in the oil moed of the midbar, meaning the Mishkan, because that's what the Torah was directly referring to. However, Shilai, Mishkan Shilai, which was the first incarnation, so to speak, of the Mishkan in Eretz Yisrael, Ubeis Halamim, and the actual Beis Hamikdash as well. Nine, how do you know that there's a well over there? No one's allowed to be in the Heichal at the time of the Keteiros. So the Gemara, Talmud Lomer Ba'Kodesh. And we learn from there that any Kodesh, meaning even the Kedusha of Shiloi, even the Kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash. Ainly Ela B'Shas HaKtorah. I would only know that while they're being maktir Keteiros, you would need to keep the Kechel clear of anybody. But B'Shas Matan Domen, we know the Kohen Gadol didn't just go into the Heichel and the Kodesh HaKodeshim, the maktir Keteiros. He went there to spritz the blood of the par and the blood of the seir. When he's in the Kodesh HaKodeshim to do those avoiders, minayin, how do we know there as well? One, may not be in the Heichel. And Rashi asks right away, why is it that you would think it says lechaper b'kodesh is a very general term. It would include any type of kapara, whether it's the bringing of the keteiros or whether it's the matan damim. But yet, the Gemara is going to explain why you would think it's only b'shas hakeiros and not b'shas matan damim. But nevertheless, the Brashtas ask, b'shas matan damim minayin. How do you know that no one's allowed to be in the oil moed, in the heichal, even when the Kohen Gadol is going to spritz? Any type of kapara. I would only know on his way in, after he does the avoda. Only up until that point, nobody's allowed to be in there. But Yosy, once he's done the avoda and he's packing up to leave, Minayin, how do you know there as well nobody's allowed to be in the oil moed. Talmud Leimer ad tzeisoi until it's completely out. The chiper ba'adoi uve'ad beisoi uve'ad kalkol uve'ad kol kal Yisrael, which we learned that kaparosoi kaidemis to kaparas beisoi. His kapara comes before kaparas beisoi. Kaparas beisoi kaidemis the kaparas echav hakayanim, and the kapara of his household comes before the kapara of the rest of the shevet kahuna. The kaparas echav hakayanim kaidemis the kaparas kol kal Yisrael, and the kapara of the Kohanim come before the kapara of Klal Yisrael. Amar Mar, Ein li ela b'shas hakta. The very first thing that we want to analyze, the very first comment that the Brisa made, is that if I wouldn't have the pasuk of lechaper, I would think that it's only usher for people to be in the heichal while the Kohen Gadol was doing the Torahs, but not during the zrikas. My mashma. Why would you think that? The pasuk says, "The chiper ba'adoi uve'ad beisu uve'kol Yisrael." You see, in the kapara, it's separated into individual groups of people. There's first him, then his household, and then Kol Yisrael. It's not like all the kaparas come together. Each kapara is separated, is isolated. So we learn Ezel kapara sheshav aloi. Which kapara includes everybody. So the Havamina was that since we're talking about a kapara of everybody, let's say that the Avoda in which the Torah is asking anybody else to be in the oil moed is only an Avoda that affects the kapara of everybody. However, there's rikas, which one rika is for the kohen, and one zrika is for the Amakayanim, and one zrika is for Klal Yisrael. It's a different carbon. So you might think that does not require no one being in the oil moed at the time. So therefore, we needed a special pasuk. The Brisa needed to highlight that any kapara, anytime a kapara is being done, whether it's the kapara of all Klal Yisrael together, whether it's the kapara of individuals, they would still require that no one else is in the oil moed.
When you say oil moed, you mean the Kodesh, is that right?
I mean the heichal, the ulam, the heichal, and the kodesh kodeshim, of course.
Right. So if people have no business there, why would they want? They shouldn't be there in the first place?
So you're asking inside the heichal itself, regardless, nobody should be there.
That's right.
No one should be there unless they have special business there.
Right.
Okay, that's a good question. The Gemara, I don't know if the Gemara answers your shaila. I'm not clear enough in the Gemara yet, but the Gemara is going to talk about that. Let's see then if the answers the kasha. If not, we'll have to deal with it then. So
The
I'm going to
point
kick
is,
the can down the road.
They can't just hang out there, for no reason at all.
There's no loitering.
That's right.
No loitering sign there. That's right. So Havaymer Zak Torah Secretaries. So now the Gemara goes off on a tangent. The Gemara just said that the Ketores is mechaper on behalf of all of Klal Yisrael. Right? The Gemara, Uchetores mi mechaperes. Does the Ketores actually make a kapara? So let me just quickly see Rashi. Havaymer Zak Torah Secretaries. Yilu matan domim ain't shava b'kulam. Matan domim is not an umbrella, universal type of kapara that applies to all of Klal Yisrael. Shapar mechaper Allah b'ala kayadim. Basir al Yisrael. So to Gemara, Ketores is Ketores mechaper. In the Gemara, yes, as a matter of fact, Ketores has special kapara qualities. The Tani we learned, the Tani Rav Chananya Taras, Lamadu the Ketores shemechaperes. We know Ketores is mechaper. Shenemar, it says by the Magefa after the story about Korach, it says Vayitin is Ketores. He quickly gave Ketores by Yechaper Lam, and that was mechaper on the Avera of Klal Yisrael, and that stopped the Magefa. You see, Ketores has special kapara qualities. The Tani Devei Bishmuel al Ma Ketores mechaperes. On what specific Avera is Ketores mechaper? Al Lashon Hara, on Lashon Hara, and why is Ketores relevant to Lashon Hara? Let a carbon or an offering that's brought b'chashoy, it's brought in private and quiet. It's brought either in the kodesh when no one sees it, or even in the heichal when you're makabit on the mizbeach hapnimi, which again is sort of isolated. It's not in the public eye. V'yichaper al ma'aseh chashoy and shlichaper and lashon hara, which normally isn't done in public. Normally it's whispering and murmuring to speak derogatory about somebody. Let's see Rashi lashon hara. Kahid karich lashon hara hava. Karich is also lashon hara. That story there. Yichsiv atem hamisim is am Hashem. Ustam lashon hara b'chashoyu. And normally lashon hara is spoken in quiet, in whispering behind people's back. So Keteris, which is done in a similar fashion, it's logical to argue
that was a public statement. That was a public
when
statement.
Korach said it. Yeah, when Korach said it. In fact,
Yes.
that's correct. But since generally lashon hara isn't declared publicly, normally lashon hara is murmured, so that's why it makes a mistake for Keteris to be mechaper. But it's funny because the case where we see publicly that it worked by the Megefa was a case of lashon hara.
That's a bad example.
I hear.
Very poor example.
Yeah, but it could be the Torah only had the option to give that example, because then the Torah would be speaking lashon hara and would be publicizing something that was otherwise not public.
Okay.
All of those, any lashon hara in the Torah is public. So the Torah is not going to. Why would the Torah list off a case of lashon hara? By the way, when Yankel stabbed Shmerel in the back, that's the example of the Torah. Then the Torah would be guilty of doing the same thing. Portion mi bein ha'ulam ulam mizbeach b'shasak. There's a general rule that not only aren't you supposed to be in the ulam itself, b'shasak Torah, but you're not even allowed to be in the 22 amos area that's in between the ulam and the mizbeach. And Rashi says, there was 22 amos between the west wall of the mizbeach and the entrance to the ulam, and that area was to be cleared as well. Zok to Gemara, Amar Abelazar, Lo Yishanu Ella B'Shas Haktorah Deheichel. When does it have to be cleared? That's only during the Shas Haktorah Deheichel, meaning Zok Rashi, the mizbeach hapnimi shachis v'arvis sarei samachlim. If there's action going on in the heichel itself, such as the keteris that was brought twice a day in the heichel, during that period of time, since the heichel is closer, it's one step in from the azara, so we clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. However, aval b'shas haktorah the lefnai lefnim, but during the keteris that's brought in the kodesh hakodeshim, then you don't have to. Mehechel parshi, of course, the hechel, which is the next area closest to the kodesh hakodeshim, that has to be cleared. But that would not require that the area between the ulam and the mizbeach is to be cleared. Rashi gives a little bit of clarity, a different type of clear than clearing the area. And Rashi said, "Lo yishanu el b'shas haktorah deheichel the mizbeach hapnimi shachas v'arvis harei samachlei," because the area right in front of the heichel is the next area directly exterior to the area that the Torah is actually being brought in. From the heichel, which is one step over, it's the neighboring area, that has to be kept clear. But the ulam, which is a step further away, loy parshi, that would not require that the area gets cleared. Zog to Gemara about Maser Rav Adabar Ata Formula Kedi or Formula Kedi, comma. The Rashi says as follows: Yosy Yuma, B'Shem Sheparshin, Yibeinu Ulam Ulamizbech B'Shas Haktorah, Kach Parshin B'Shas Matan Par Koyin Mashiach. So too, when they're spritzing the blood of the Koyin Mashiach, which was a par that was brought any time the Koyin Mashiach didn't have there, or par Helam Davish or Tzibur, or a par that was brought if the Tzibur did a Chayv Krisos because they got a wrong psak, or if all of Klal Yisrael were over Avoda Zarah through a mistake, and the Bach sticks in a very important additional one, which is relevant to us. The Bach sticks in by Bays. The Domim Shal Yom HaKippurim. So you also took the Dom Shem Kippurim. All these cases, you have to clear the area between. You have to clear the Heichel, and you have to clear as well. So you have to clear the Heichel. Ha Ma Maila Yesh Ben Heichel Levein HaUlam Ulam Mizbeach. So if you have these two areas, what is the difference between these two areas? The Heichel itself required to be cleared during these avodas, as well as the area of Ulam Mizbeach. Elisha Heichel portion Bein B'Shas Haktara, Bein Shalosh B'Shas Haktara. So this is what I was referring to, David, when I said later on, it brings up the fact that the Heichel anyway has to always be clear. The Heichel has to be clear, sai when there's an avodah occurring, and sai when there's no avodah occurring, no loitering there. However, when we've been Ulam Mizbeach, but the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, which is exterior to the Heichel, ein portion ela b'shas haktar. You're only going to separate from that area. We're only going to clear that area b'shas the haktarah is actually occurring. So I think this directly addresses what you said. B'shas haktarah miyaparshi. However, b'shas haktarah, it's quite clear that you have to stay away from the area that's between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. Zok to Gemara, my love. What's the pasuk of pshat that the Brisa says that the Shas Haktorah, the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, has to be kept clear? The Shas Haktorah, the Lafnai Lafnim. So if we're going to assume that the Shas Haktorah referred to here is Haktorah Lafnai Lafnim, then you have a raya, in fact, that even when they're doing the Ketores or the Zrikas Adam inside the Kodesh HaKodeshim, which is 2 steps away from the area between the Ulam and Mizbeach, there also you need to clear that area. So it's a kasha on what we said, that you only have to clear the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach when you're doing avodas in the Heichel, because it's only 1 step removed. This seems to indicate that even if it's 2 steps removed, you still have to clear the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, even when the avodah has been done in the Kodesh Kodesh. Let's see Rashi. Bein b'shas haktorah, because akadaite. Bein b'shas haktorah the lafnayu lafnim. Bein shaloi b'shas haktorah the lafnayu lafnim. That's the pashut way the Gemara is understanding this price. That say if there's haktorah lafnayu from say not, you still have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. Ella b'shas matan domim the lafnayu lafnim. So the way the Gemara is going to understand, the way Gemara now currently understands the price is you have to clear the area. Say if there's matan domim in the lafnai lafnim, and say if there's not. Say if there's ketores being makrib in the lafnai lafnim, and say if you're not being makrib ketores in the lafnai lafnim, but you're doing matan domim. Either way, you would need to clear the area between ulam and mizbeach. Between ulam and mizbeach, ein portion, not b'shas avoda, b'shem lafnai lafnim. Between the ulam and the mizbeach, you will not separate. You will not clear because of avodah done in the lafnai lafnim. Elo b'shas haktorah, avaloi b'shas matana. Look more, my love, he appreciates. So my love, b'shas haktorah lafnai lafnim, and b'shas haktorah lafnai lafnim, you also have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. That's going to be shver on our assumption that during the avodah lafnai lafnim you don't have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. But b'shas haktorah the heichel, what the Brisa means is b'shas haktorah in the heichel is when you have to clear out the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. But you don't have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach b'shas haktorah of the lafnai lafnim. Zok Rashi, loy b'shas haktorah the heichel. That's where ka'omar the portion between the ulam and the mizbeach. Only during the haktorah inside the heichel must the area between the ulam and the mizbeach be clear. This is how we would read the Brisa. The Shemsha portion, the ulam, the same way you clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach, the shas haktorah, the heichel, during the time where there's haktorah in the heichel, kach portion, b'shas matan par koin Mashiach tavinami beichel. So too, not only if you're being maktir keteris in the heichal, must you clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach, but you also have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach if other avodas are being done in the heichal other than keteris, such as spritzing blood of any of these karbanis that we listed off that requires rikastam in the heichal. Zok the Gemara, if that's how you're going to understand the brisa, hama maila. Why is this a special maila? Let's see Rashi. Rashi gives a little bit of a complicated understanding. The cheshemsha portion, b'shas haktorah, a heichal kai, if the comments of the brisa that the same way your parish is referring to an avodah in the heichal, the loyad lefnai v'lefnim, and it's not referring to avodas that are being done in the kodesh hakodeshim, hama maila yesh. What maila is there? Vitmiya. Are you telling me that the only difference between the place outside the Azara, the place outside the Heichal, between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, and the Heichal itself, is that the only difference? The Shaloi b'shas haktorah, not b'shas haktorah. The Shaloi b'shas haktorah, the Lafnai v'laflim, the Katani, that we're learning now. That shaloi b'shas haktorah means the haktorah of the lafnai v'lafnim shebeheichel portion bein b'shas haktorah that you're going to be parish shai b'shas haktorah bein the heichel bein lafnai v'lafnim you'll be parish. Say if there's avodah done, if there's haktorah done in the lafnai v'lafnim, you'll be parish. Shai b'shas haktorah. Say if there's no haktorah bein shaloi b'shas haktorah el b'shas matan damen. Even if there's no keteris happening, there's only zerikas dam, bein dehechel, bein lefnai v'lefnim. No matter where this dam is being spritzed, say if it's in the hechel, say it's in the lefnai v'lefnim. So in the hechel itself, no matter what avoid is being done, no matter whether it's being done in the lefnai v'lefnim or if it's being done in the hechel, you have to clear the hechel. But when bein the ulam l'mizbeach, loy preshinon. However, the area outside the hechel, that's between the ulam and the mizbeach, there you would not have to clear shaloi b'shas haktorah, not during the shas haktorah. The shas matan domim, the lefnai v'lefnim, elo b'shas haktorah the heichel. So what Rashi is explaining is, you're telling me that when anything is done in the heichel, you'll have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. But when it comes to the lefnai v'lefnim, then only when it comes to the 5 things, there's matan domim in the lefnai v'lefnim and not haktorah, then you wouldn't have to clear the area outside the mizbeach. Elo b'shas haktorah the heichel. The afilu b'shas haktorah yesh maila. So why is it that we're saying that there's no other difference between the area outside the heichal and inside the heichal? Ha'ika hayamaila. There's also another maila. Dilu meheichal parshi bein b'shas haktorah today. Bein b'shas haktorah the lefnai v'lefnim. From the heichal itself, you must clear. Say if keteris is being brought in the heichal, and say if keteris is being brought in the lefnai v'lefnim, you're going to have to clear the heichal itself. The ilam between the ulam and the mizbeach. However, the area between the ulam and the mizbeach, loy parshi, you would not have to clear that area. Ela b'shas haktorah the heichal. Only at the time where there's haktorah occurring in the heichal, but when there's haktorah occurring in the kodesh hakodeshim, there you wouldn't have to clear out the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. So that's another difference. On that the Gemara says hakatani. It actually does say that. It says el shabehechel portion bein b'shas haktorah bein shaloi b'shas haktorah when bein ulam and mizbeach ein portion elo b'shas haktorah. So Dr. Rashi hakatani b'nechutza. The Gemara is saying in fact it does say that. Hachinami ka'amar hai b'shas haktorah the ka'amar. That it says that b'shas haktorah is b'shas haktorah the heichal ka'amar. When there's haktorah done in the heichal. V'hai shaloi b'shas haktorah the ka'amar. And when the bride says shaloi b'shas haktorah, it means shaloi b'shas haktorah the heichal ka'amar. But b'shas haktorah he lefnai v'lefnim. B'shas haktorah the heichal. Only then do you have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. But b'shas there's haktorah lefnai v'lefnim, you would not have to clear the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. Well, shaloi b'shas haktorah the katani. So let's see the Gemara. In portion ella b'shas haktorah. Only the b'shas haktorah. The Gemara about Ika HaMaila, what about another Maila that you have, a difference between the area between Ulam and Mizbeach and the Hechel? The Hechel Parshi, Bein Biktusha today, Bein Biktusha Lefnai Lefnim. The area inside the Hechel itself, you have to clear Sai when you're doing Avoda in the Hechel, and Sai when you're doing Avoda in the Kodesh HaKodeshim. The Ilu, maybe the Ulam and the Mizbeach, the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, Loi Parshi Ela Bektusha the Hechel. That would only be cleared when there's avoda being done in the Hechel. Amarava Shem Prisha Achasi. That we're not worried. So because Rashi Kula Chada Mailahi. They all stem from the same Maila. The Mehechel Parshi Mishum Lefnai Lefnim. In the Hechel itself, you're not allowed to have anyone standing there if there's something being done in the Lefnai Lefnim. Bein b'shvil haktorah, bein b'shvil matan damim. It doesn't matter what is occurring in the lefnai v'lefnim, whether it's haktorah, whether it's making zruk sadam. Regardless, in the hechel itself, no one's allowed to stand. And in the area between the ulam and mizbeach, loy parshi b'shvil lefnai v'lefnim klal. Anything done in the kodesh hakodeshim would not impact at all the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. The chivin ashmiinan, the mishum aktorah the lefnai lefnim loy parshi, and once we know that anything that happens lefnai v'lefnim doesn't make you have to clear the area in the ulam and mizbeach, loy yitrach lashmina mishum matan dam. We don't need to anymore the brayso to directly address matan dam. So once the brayso tells us that if they're not being makter k'toros, that if you're being makter k'toros lefnai v'lefnim, it does not impact the area outside the Heichal between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, so too the Brayso doesn't have to list off specifically that the Matan Damim inside the Kodesh HaKodeshim will not impact the area that's outside the Heichal between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. Zok to Gemara weiter. Amamar, Kach portion b'shas Matan Par Kohen Mashiach Upar Helam Davar Shal Tibar. So we're quoting the brisa that we just brought down, that the prisha, the area that we're saying must be cleared, is even for other karbanos, not only the karbanos of the Kippur, but even the b'shas matan damim of the Parkei Mashiach, the Par Helam Davar Tibur, and the Sirah Vayikam. Minolam. How do you know that? You have a pasuk by Yom Kippur that says V'chol Adam Lo Yeh Ba'il Moed, but there is no pasuk by all of these karbanos that list off that you're not allowed to be in the Heichal or the area in front of the Heichal during their avodas. Amrapodya Asya Kapara Kapara Yom Kippur. We learn a Zereshava of the word kapara that's used on Yom Kippur, and we learn from there to the kapara that's used by each of these karbonis that they would have the same law. Amar Rav Acha, or the Gershon says Rav Ada Bar Ava Shema Bina. We see from here that Milos is Daraisa. We see from here that the Milos mentioned in Maseches Kalim. In Maseches Kalim, the Mishnah lists up all the different areas and the levels of Kedusha each one has over and above the area before. And I'm going to read Rashi, who lists off, who tells us what the Mishnah says. The Gomer Hasam, Har Habayis, Mekudesh Mirushalayim. Har Habayis has a greater level of Kedusha than the city of Yerushalayim. V'achel Mehar Habayis, and the Chel is an area that's closer to the center in Har Habayis itself, which has a higher level of Kedusha. Barim aren't allowed to go there. There's this Noshim Minachel, and the Ezra Noshim, which is already in the Azara, has a higher level of Kedusha than the Chel. There's this Yisrael Mishal Noshim, and there's Yisrael has a higher level of Kedusha. And there's Ezra Noshim, Mishal Kayan, and Mishal Yisrael, Uvein Ha'ulam, Ulam Mizbeach Min HaZara, and this is where we're focusing. There's a greater level of Kedusha in the Azara, in the area between the Ulam and Mizbeach, that has a higher level of Kedusha than the rest of the Azara. And inside the Heichel itself, it's even a higher level of Kedusha than even the 22 Amos right in front of the Heichel. So, Zok to Gemara, that this Mishnah that we just quoted, the differences in levels of Kedusha is Dairaisa. These are all Dairaisa and although they're not mentioned specifically in the pasuk, it's halacha l'Moshe Messina. It's halacha l'Moshe Messina. V'hachi gemirlu, and that's how they're learned. Hilchach, therefore, since we're establishing that all of these levels are at dairaisa, so therefore in your prisha nami dekra by itzrich prisha elamahechal. That's why it makes sense to say that when we're requiring clearing areas, we only require clearing of the heichal itself. Also, Rabbana, so the Torah is saying Rabbana the one expand that gezerah. The gozer ben the ulam mizbeach. They'll add the area that's one level of kedusha down from the heichal, which is the area ben the ulam mizbeach. Why would they add that to the isser of the heichal? Because someone is likely, it's possible that someone standing in that area right in front of the heichal, you might go in. But why, once we're, if there's no levels deraisa and all of the zara deraisa has the same status, why is it that they would have only limited their extension of the Isser for people to be to that small area of the Azara that's to the west of the Mizbeach? Why didn't they say the entire Azara has to be cleared when there's a Avoda being done? Kedusha achasi. It's one kedusha. The shar kol azara kedusha achas. So it's logical to say that they'll only extend the gzeira to the area ben ulam mizbeach because that's on a higher level of kedusha than the rest of the azara. So the fact that the Rabbanan only added the area right outside the azara, right outside the heichal, and not the entire azara, it's not a line that Jay drew. Those were naturally drawn lines. Midaraisa, there's already a difference between that area directly in front of the heichal and the rest of the azara. So when the Rabbanan made their takana, it's understandable that they only extended it to the first area right out of the heichal because midaraisa, that area is distinct. V'shakol are kedusha achasi. When the ulam was bayach gufa gzeira. So we're arguing that midaraisa you're only not allowed to be the heichal. The fact that we're saying that the ulam was bayach has to be cleared is only exeir to Rabbanan. Therefore, there's no reason to extend the exeir to the rest of the azara, because then Babaloshar azara gzeir l'gzeir. Then by answering the rest of the azara, which is two levels down from the heichal, that's exeir l'gzeir. However, if all of these levels of kedusha that the Mishnah and Kalim lists off are not deraisa, they're just Rabbanan, of deraisa ben ulam l'mizbeach v'chol ha'azara chada kedusha, but it's all one big kedusha. So then, why is it that they would have made that distinction? So shmami no malas deraisa v'achad gemir lahu, and it's all halacha l'moshe Sinai. He said kedayich Rabbanan. If it's only with Rabbanan the difference, but technically the entire azara has one level of kedusha. Why did Chazal dafka answer the area between the ulam and the mizbeach? Dilma mikri ba'ailu, because somebody might come in from that level of kedusha into the heichal. Mikul azara nami nifreshu. They should have said that the entire azara needs to be cleared during the avodah in the heichal. For the same reason, dilma mikri ba'ailu. Since someone might come in, Dr. Mar, you don't have a right that it's the Rashi. Maybe to their bonum. You're going to ask. So then, why didn't they treat the entire azara the same? An aser entrance into the whole azara during avodah in the heichal. Dr. Mar ben ulam mizbeach is a distinct area from a geographic perspective. Kivin like mafsik midi. There's no mizbeach in between you standing between the ulam mizbeach and the ulam. So it's very easy to walk right in, like minker milsa. And there's no physical barrier obstructing your entrance into the heichal. There they felt the need to make a gzeira. But the rest of the azara on the east side of the mizbeach, even the ikam mizbeach achitza in the mafsik, there's a big, huge structure in the mizbeach that obstructs your entrance into the heichal. Minker mills. That's why they didn't see a need to make a gzeira for the rest of the azara, because you have a big mizbeach blocking. We're not worried that someone's going to get into the heichal without thinking about it. Zok Gemara Vayter. Amrava Shmami Na. You see from here that kedushas ulam v'heichal chadam milsi. By the same token, you see that the kedusha of the ulam was an area, an antechamber that was added on to the heichal. The mishkan only had the heichal. You walked in the mishkan, you walked right into the heichal. In the mizbeach, before you walked in to the Heichel, there was an ulam there. There was a big structure, a room that you walked into first. So we see from here that the ulam had the same level of kedusha as the Heichel itself. Look Rashi, kedushas ulam, Heichel ulam chadi, ulam nami oil moed mikri. When it says v'chal adam lo yeh ba'oil moed, the ulam is included in the isur daraisa of the isur to enter that oil moed, and therefore Avoda chaka livresh mi ben ulam l'mizbeach. And therefore, when they're abundant, are adding it, they don't have to add the ulam to the heichel because the ulam and the heichel is one unit. So therefore, the area that they're adding on is the area ben ulam l'mizbeach. So let's see what the Gemara says over here. Rabbi said that Shema Mina that kedusha ulam heichel chad milsi. These hakadat shtei kedusha is. If it's two different levels of kedusha, well then the Torah only directly says a person can't be in the heichel. Ulam gufei gzeir. The fact that they barred entry to the ulam during that period of time is going to be only a gzeir. So then why would you extend it to the area outside of the ulam? The nekim v'nigzer gzeir l'gzeir. So you have a raya that the ulam must be kadosh with the raisa with the same level of kedusha as the heichel. So tomorrow you don't have a raya. Maybe the ulam doesn't have the same level of kedusha as the heichel itself, but maybe it has less kedusha than the heichel. It has the same level of kedusha as the space between the ulam and the mizbeach, and therefore, but heichel ulam is kedusha. So therefore, when they made a gzeira to add on, the Torah itself says only in the heichel you're not allowed to have anybody there during the avodah. But the area outside the heichel, which the Chazal will lump into one area, the ulam and the area between the ulam and mizbeach, which is one level of kedusha, the same level of kedusha, that entire area would be included in the gzeira, and it would not be considered a gzeira l'gzeira. Let's see the Gemara right. Every day, the kohen gadol or the kohen would dig up coals for the players with a shovel of silver, and he would pour it in to a shovel of gold. My timer, why not use a shovel of gold? When you're digging with a shovel of in coals, it's going to wear out the shovel. So it's a shame to wear out a golden shovel. Better wear out a silver shovel. There was no digging coals with one shovel and pouring it into a different shovel. Rather, the same shovel that you dug the coals with, that's the shovel with which you enter the Kodesh HaKodesh. My timer, why is it that you don't use two like in every other day? Once again, transferring things over is extra work that can tire out the Kohen Gadol, which is something that we want to try to avoid. Every day they used 4 kavan, and today they dug with a shovel of 3 kavan and they took it right in. Every day they dug with a shovel of 4 kavan and they poured it into a shovel of only 3 kavan. Tanu we learn, mispaz ruloi kav gechalim. Of course, 1 kav goes missing, because if you have a shovel that has 4 kavan and you pour it into a shovel that has 3 kavan, 1 kav is going to go missing. It's going to fall on the floor. So mechabdun la'ama, you sweep it into the Amo, the river that was running through the brook that was running through the base of Mikdash. You don't leave the ashes there on the floor. Tani chada kav. With the one brayso that only 1 kav got spilled over, the Tanya idich kabayim, 2 kav got spilled over. So, frankly, Gemara, b'shlema hach, the Tani kav, if the brayso says a kav got spilled over, Rabbanon, it makes sense, it's going according to Rabbanon, that they used a machta of 4 to dig, and then they put it into a machta of 3, so 1 will spill over. But the brayso says that 2 kav of ash spilled on the floor. How do you figure that? Mani loy Rabbanon, can we go to Rabbanon? According to Rabbanon, there's only 1 kav extra. But like Rabbi Yosy, because Rabbi Yosy holds that he used a shovel of 6 kav and he put it into a shovel of 3 kav, so then 3 kav would have spilled on the floor. So how do you ever have the 2 kav spill on the floor? So tomorrow, Rabbi Chisda, Rabbi Shmuel b'noi shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika. It's following the sheet of Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika. Tanya, Rabbi Shmuel b'noi shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika Omer, b'shel kabayim hoya. He would take the machta that he used to take coals into the heichel was not 3 kav, it was actually only 2 kav. So if you take 4 kav and you pour it over into 2 kav, there's going to be 2 kav that are going to spill on the floor. Rashi Omer, afilu temer Rabbi Yosy, even if one says it's going according to Rabbi Yosy. But then your question will be, if your shovel is 6 kav and you're pouring it into a macht of 3 kav, there should be 3 kav on the floor, not 2. Zok Gemara, no. Every day he would use a shovel that had 6 kav of midboris, but we know that the shiurim in Yerushalayim were made bigger. So 6 kav, a saw is 6 kav. So 6 kav midboris would actually be considered 5 kav Yerushalmis. And so he had 5 kav Yerushalmis, and he poured it into a machta that only held 3 kav in Yerushalmis, which would mean you'd have 2 kav in Yerushalmis that would fall on the floor. And that's what the Brisa means when it says the shel kabayim 2 kav, he would have to sweep into the Amma. Every day there was a heavy machta, today it was a lighter machta. Every day the metal was thicker, so therefore it was heavier. Today it was a lighter gauge metal, which made the keli lighter. Okay, so let's just finish the 2 lines. 2 lines left. Every day it was a short handle. Today it was a long handle. My time states so he can extend the handle under his arm, which will give him leverage to hold it better. The ashtik. Rashi learns that the ashtik is a ring that hung off the makta that made some noise. But the makta bim kippur had a little ring that made noise. And that was because it says Rashi says, the pasuk says all the way at the bottom that there was noise made. There was noise made when he went in. Rashi says Mashmiya called, says v'nishma koilai u'vayala kodesh. So they had this little charm on it that jingled, and that's why people heard it. That was only done on Yom Kippur and was stopping.